Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 3rd, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop. We got Washington State, you can see British Columbia. You can also see our next frontal system on its way. It's churning, it's moving across the Gulf of Alaska. It's going to bring some precipitation, a little bit of blustery wind action with this system as well. Nothing too crazy, but we will be taking a look at what is to come with that system and what is coming after that as well. Went out there for a little bit this morning, tried to view that comet, did not see it. I think it's getting a little bit too close to the sun. It was a little bit too bright by the time the comet was coming above the horizon, but it made for a nice sunrise there. Got some nice shots of Mount Rainier as well. Hoping for a lenticular cloud to come off some of the Cascades later on today. So let's dive into things here. And you can see Washington State is right there. This is our frontal system. You can see the winds at 500 millibars in the red lines there. And you can see at the surface, we've got kind of an offshore flow going on in the meantime before this frontal system arrives. Just thought I'd show you guys that. You can see how you can scroll back and forth and you overlay some of this mesoanalysis stuff on here. So yeah, I like looking at that. And looking at the tempest weather stations here, you can see I've selected this one near Moses Lake. You can see I-90 is right here. You can see all the other weather stations around, and you can see the wind update as I speak. The lightning detection system with this is great. You can also see it's starting to pick up some of that solar radiation, and the brightness is increasing. A little bit of UV index just starting as the sun is just starting to rise as we go through this morning. So if you want one of these weather stations, click on that link down below to save 10% off. Highly recommended. Looking at SeaTac yesterday, 63 degrees. Had some nice sunshine out there, 3 degrees below average. No precipitation yet, but that is going to change tomorrow. So that'll be for October 4th as that frontal system moves through. We'll take a look at those details coming up. And just a reminder here that we do have some changes coming to cold and freeze products here. They're going to go from things like extreme cold watch and wind chill watch to extreme cold watch. They're going to try to simplify things a little bit here. So if you want to check that out, go to your local National Weather Service page or just go ahead and Google this. Now, looking at Friday, we do have the risk, especially east of the mountains, east slopes, and across some eastern Oregon, Washington, for some gusty winds, rapid fire spread risk, some blowing dust out there. You see all the highways and interstates that could be affected. Spokane is also talking about the same thing as well. Look at this gust, 30 to 50 miles per hour for some individual locations. But in the meantime, today should be quite nice out there. The wind shouldn't be too strong. And you can see there is a frost advisory. It does include Moses Lake, Ritzville, Spokane, and Pullman down here as well. Now, taking a look at Seattle Tacoma, check it out. This gale watch is up for some of the Strait of Juan de Fuca here. This is for the system that's going to come in on Friday. And you can see that here, southwest winds 20-30 knots, over 35 miles knots possible. That's up towards 40 miles per hour. And again, that is across the Strait of Juan de Fuca for tomorrow as this frontal system goes through. And with this offshore wind in the meantime, as I mentioned, we got a little bit of northeast easterly wind here. We have a red flag warning out there for portions of the Cascades in Oregon. And this is for southwest Oregon as well. Something similar here, some gusty winds as this system goes through. This is for Friday, and low relative humidities there as well. Now, taking a look at this is 700 millibars temperature here, and you can see the Gulf of Alaska. This is our next system rolling in. You got Washington, Oregon off to the right here. Put that into motion, and you can clearly see our mid-latitude cyclone moving right between Vancouver Island and Haida Gwaii towards western BC, and the colder air aloft that is arriving with that frontal system. We'll take a look at those totals here in a moment, and then we scroll out towards the early portion of next week, and maybe another frontal system approaching the region as well. More on that here in a moment. And at 18,000 feet, there's where our frontal system is rolling in. You see that lobe of colder air moving in across the area as we go through tomorrow. Now, taking a look at 500 millibar height. So if I put this into motion, you'll clearly see this bit of a polar lobe here rolling through as we go through Friday. We try to build some ridging here, and we dry out for a couple days and probably a portion of the day on Monday. And then we've got this system trying to roll in here. We'll continue to take a look at this. This doesn't look too progressive, so this is probably going to be weakening as it approaches Washington and Oregon. And we'll revisit that here, and we'll look at the long-term forecast here in a moment as well. But again, I wanted to show you the frontal system. There goes that low pressure system just north of Vancouver Island, but it's got a decent frontal system with it, and some of that precipitation will get down towards Portland, some of the central Willamette Valley, and maybe a bit of a convergent zone across some of the Cascades as we go through Friday night into very early Saturday morning. And then we dry out for a little bit here as we go through Sunday, and then Monday morning comes along, and then this next batch of precipitation tries to make its way in So in the meantime, again, excuse me, offshore winds are going on right now. Not too strong there, but it is driving some of the red flag warnings across some of the northern Oregon Cascades. And our system comes in here. You can see that flow of reversal as we bring things back onshore. Gusty winds here for eastern Washington, Oregon down the strait. Nothing too crazy here, especially western portions. I'll show you some of those wind speeds here in a moment. And then the next frontal system tries to get going as we go through the early portion of next week. So looking at peak wind gusts, we'll scroll through here and you can see there is some local areas, higher terrain and whatnot, that picks up some stronger winds as we go on in through Friday. And you can see some of these gusts start to pick up across eastern Oregon, Washington. But as this frontal system swings through, I mean, you're talking about around 30 miles per hour for Bellingham, Seattle, maybe the Washington coastline there as well. We're not looking at wind speeds that are very strong with this system. If we look at Seattle Tacoma International Airport, right now talking about 3-4 tenths of an inch of rain, pretty good ensemble agreement. We are going to get at least a couple tenths of inch of rain out of this system, so you can probably stop watering your yards for a while. And it's getting towards that time of year anyway as we start to move on into October. And here we go with the European ensemble members here again. The mean is in the green and the control is in the blue, so you can see everything agrees as we go through the day Friday. We're going to see some precipitation, especially across Washington and down towards Portland as well. And I'm going to show you that here in a moment. Did I not leave out Portland? There we go. We got Portland right there. You can see, up over 3/10 of an inch. Not a bad little wetting there. Now, if we take a look at the extended forecast a little bit, you remember when I showed you this yesterday, European had a pretty good deficit here across western Washington and western Oregon. But you can see that's changed a little bit here. So when you're looking at this stuff, 15-day anomalies, you kind of take that with a grain of salt. But one thing that remains is a pretty good bullseye here across a lot of western BC. The question is how much of western Washington and Oregon are going to get included in some of this above average rainfall as we go on in towards the mid portion of October. So if we take a look at yesterday afternoon's run here, total precipitation in inches, there's our initial frontal system, then that next week's system as we go through the early portion of next week, and then we continue to look off in towards mid-October. And you can see we've got some additional systems trying to roll in here, so we may start to pick things up a little bit as we go through the mid portion of October. We'll see how that goes, because it's been flipping and flopping back and forth, but you can see not too bad of a signal there as we go through October 17th. The GFS, though, kind of still showing that deficit here, better amounts across western BC, but again, take that with a grain of salt. Now, looking off into the extended, there goes our frontal system initially. Then we build a little bit of ridging here. We dry out through Sunday. Then Monday, this next week's system tries to swing through here. Doesn't make much headway, and you can see the troughing out over the Pacific Ocean, the Gulf of Alaska. Kind of strong trough out there as we go on in through about October 12th. But, we'll continue to watch this and see how this goes, and we'll get a bit more detailed as we get closer to these individual systems. So if we take a look at the same thing here, and I just want to kind of point that out. There's Friday's system, there's early next week's system, and you can see some of these dying by the time they get here towards Pacific Northwest, but we do have these chances for precipitation here. Then the Gulf of Alaska really gets going there off in the extended fantasy land there and brings some frontal systems through the area. And it is October, so it is that time of year where we start picking up these mid-latitude cyclone frequencies into the Pacific Northwest. And of course, we'll be comet watching here as we go on through the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th of October coming up, and maybe a little bit beyond that as well. But we'll wait for till we get a little bit closer here, and we'll be watching the cloud cover potential during that time period. It's going to switch from more of a sunrise viewing here, which looks like it's about over, and then as we get on in towards October 12th, we're going to be switching that around to look for some sunset viewing with the comet, and it's going to be fairly close to the sun. So as the sun drops down, then we'll be looking off into the west in the night sky and trying to pick up that comet. Now, 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, you can see the above average has been introduced for some of the west coast here. The 6 to 10 day, a lot of the west above average. We go through October 12th as well. We'll see how that shakes out. And here we go, comparing 2 weeks. Actually, I think this is, I did September 3rd and October 1st. So the only thing we really changed, we changed a little bit of the abnormally dry. We took away some of that extreme drought across eastern Washington as well. And we did add, it looks like, a little bit of some of that severe drought across portions of eastern Washington. But overall, the changes were not too big. And drought persisting here. A few days ago, they released this is for October 2024. But the good news is that we are looking at some drought removal and some drought improvement as we go through, the October 1st through December 31st timeframe. Makes sense, right? We're going to start to get some systems into the Pacific Northwest. Pretty typical. But yeah, frontal system rolling on through tomorrow. Looking forward to that. But yeah, maybe I'll try to get a lenticular cloud action here. Maybe a nice sunset tonight. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, hope you guys are liking the channel. Leave some comments below. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.